How to get rich by mastering crypto without getting lucky.
One thing I've realized, building is obviously very hard. Everyone wants something right now. Everyone wants to get rich quick. Everyone wants this. No, everything is hard. Everything takes time. When people say crypto is early, of course it is, but the internet is also early. And that's the only secret to getting rich with crypto.
Anil Lulla, the co-founder and CEO of Delphi Digital,
a research-driven firm dedicated to advancing the understanding and development
of the growing digital asset market.
How did you build one of the most successful companies in the space without killing each other?
People on the team, they've seen us get into huge fights, but it's like there was never any ego. We always were just fighting because we thought this was the best decision for the brand as a whole. So at the end of the day, we would get very passionate about it, but like if anything, I would be scared if we didn't fight.
What was the dumbest idea that ended up working out amazingly well?
Man, there's so many.
Let's dive a bit deeper. Be more present and grateful of what you've achieved.
This is the one that I struggle with the most. I'm able to, work really hard and go on these sprints, and then when I am either relaxing, able to reflect on that moment, then is actually where I get a lot of enjoyment out of it.
What's the best way to become hyper bullish on life?
Spend time with people, do things like this, have conversations with people about their journey, their story. And I think that's beautiful. That makes me super bullish talking to people.
You gave us some solid personal growth and life alpha, but we are here to do crypto.
I love it.
What are 3, 4, 5 frameworks that you think are really helpful for people to become really good at crypto investing?
Yeah, I'd say
75% of you that watch this channel frequently do not subscribe. If you like this show and think it provides value to you in your crypto investing journey, can you please do me a favor and subscribe to this channel? Hit the like button and leave a comment below. It helps this channel more than you can imagine. The bigger the channel, the bigger the guests, and the better the conversation. Thank you. This conversation is supported by Jupiter, the most used decentralized trading platform on Solana and the largest DAO in the world. 3, a scalable layer 1 blockchain that's fast, secure, and affordable, built by previous Facebook developers, and that delivers the benefits of Web3 with the ease of Web2. And Parental, an Ethereum layer 2 that built 2 products I particularly like. FBTC, which enables you to borrow and lend Bitcoin in DeFi, and METH or METH, one of the largest ETH liquid staking protocols that, by the way, just launched its token called Cook.
Looking sexy?
nice. Yeah, thank you. Appreciate it.
Looking sexy.
Is that the new pod name?
Maybe we could brainstorm on the...
Yeah.
So what should we do with that?
Yeah, exactly. We'll have to bring Delphi design into it.
Fair enough. I mean, I'm always happy to... that's the kind of things where I'm a big picture person.
Yeah.
So I'm like, fucking name, fucking logo. I don't give a fuck, right?
Yeah.
So every time there's a bit of an improvement because someone comes and say, Kevin, this is shit.
Yeah.
Do something. Like, I don't have time for that, right?
No, yeah, for sure.
What do you think of the logo? Very honestly, brutally honest.
It could definitely be better, but I like it. I mean, it gets straight to the point, right? I was asking you right before, like, why the shift? And then you just kind of like laughed and said shit was taken. Yeah. And so I totally get it.
Shit happens.
Yeah.
All the time.
Yeah,
every day.
Sure.
But we're still here.
No, I love it. Yeah.
You were talking about this book before?
Yeah. So, I was super excited to do this pod with you because I think I've seen the grind, I've seen the hustle. And when you were in Singapore and reached out, I was like, this is like perfect timing. And essentially like your story kind of reminds me of this book I read called The Third Door. Premise is super simple, right? It's basically like all successful people, they find some way in, right? So most people, they take the front door. Some people try and figure out the back door, but then after that, they give up. The third door basically is like, this attribute that a lot of successful people have who basically, no matter what, they're going to figure a way in, right? And
have to.
You were just telling me, about some stories about how you started off recording some podcasts, at the church and everything like that. Mm. And then after every podcast, asking for some referrals. And then over that, building and doing this now for, almost 2 years and, every week. So I've seen the consistency and yeah, it's super, motivating. I love to see it.
So what I try to do is to not ask for referrals. That's maybe my Swiss side. I'm not like very good at asking for things, but I'm trying to make it so special that they come and they say, man, this was so different and so good. Who do you want to talk to?
For sure.
And I'm like, fuck, yes. Like the benchmark is always, how much do they remember this out of all the other podcasts that they do, right?
Definitely. No, I love to hear that.
Anil, What is your mission?
Mission, man, that's a broad statement. Honestly, my mission is to just, like, support as many people in the world as possible, like my best friends, my family, my loved ones, and like help accomplish their dreams, right? And then, on a deeper level at Delphi, our mission is to make crypto happen sooner and better than it would without us. And, every day I wake up really charged up because, I really take a step back and think how important crypto is for, the world that we want it to be. And I think Delphi is kind of like one of the most important things I could be working on. And that's for myself. And, ever since, I used to work in TradFi, and ever since starting Delphi in 2018, even when, we weren't making any money, we were like, very poor, just like, bankrupt basically, living in New York, and living off 0% APR cards, working, on something that I was passionate on was the happiest I've ever been. And ever since then, even before Delphi became, a quote unquote success, I've always been pushing my, best friends, and kind of anyone who I interact with to just pursue their passions. Because I think even if you're failing at your passion, you're going to be happier than being successful at something that you hate.
What's the moment that you realized that this was the key to being more happy in life?
Immediately. So like, we basically, we were working at Deutsche Bank, when we came up with the idea for Delphi. Didn't have the name or anything like that, but essentially fell down the crypto rabbit hole. And also, being at a dying German bank, kind of like made us very, pessimistic on the traditional banking system. And essentially like, for almost a year, we were, working on Delphi, trying to get this startup off the ground without, leaving our jobs. And honestly, we didn't get very far. We got distracted by Fortnite, actually, funny enough. Fortnite is important history in Delphi because it basically delayed us by starting Delphi for a while. But it honestly probably led to our success, because if we had started too early, we would have probably not made it out of that bear. But funny enough, like as soon as we quit our jobs, which was, a very intimidating thing to do, I was kind of talking to you about this before, where it's kind of like in the Dark Knight, where essentially like, when Christian Bale is trying to make that jump, and every time he has that rope, he doesn't make it. But as soon as he lets go of that rope, he makes it. That's exactly what it felt like, taking the leap and starting Delphi. And essentially, like as soon as we, walked out of our MD's office in Deutsche Bank, and we're like, hey, now we're full-time Delphi. It was just the most exciting and like this feeling that I've never felt before, and I've not stopped feeling since.
Why is it so intimidating to leave a job?
Yeah, I mean, the golden handcuffs are real, right? Safety is so nice. Being able to, not have to worry when banking is a little bit different. You do, you're kind of on call whenever. So I was working, very long hours for sure, doing leverage finance, but essentially like still it wasn't, my own thing or anything like that. So, weekends and stuff I could still try to enjoy or anything like that. As soon as you are committed to something, like a startup or something that you're trying to build yourself, you don't, I'm sure you're the same way. You don't like eat, sleep, drink, anything without thinking about it, right? It's always not in the back of your mind, in the front of the mind. And, that's very stressful for people. And entrepreneurship is hard, right? Anything is hard, I think, in life. But starting something and putting yourself out there is really hard, really intimidating. And, being able to just work at a job that just says, hey, this is what you have to check off. Here's a checklist. You just do this today, and, you'll get a bonus at the end of the year, and, go enjoy time with like your loved ones, whatever. That's way easier. Yeah.
You said you don't sleep, eat, drink without thinking about it. I would even add like especially those days are really intense. I don't even eat at all.
Yeah. There are definitely days like that. Yeah, for sure.
Sometimes I forget. Sometimes I'm like, it's actually better for my brain to work for 4 or 5 hours of podcast to not eat at all.
Yeah. Is that what you're doing today?
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah, I'm probably not gonna eat until 3:30.
Yeah. See, I love that grind. And then, when you do eat, it's going to feel so like fulfilling, right? You've accomplished so much.
I'm not sure about that. The problem I have is I eat too fast. So I don't even realize that I'm eating.
Man, right.
Everybody's like, fuck, bro, you're eating so fast. And I'm like, oh, fuck, yeah. I'm not living in the present when I eat.
No, I think that was also a big shift in Delphi. So first like 3 years, I'd say, we were 24/7 grinding. I actually lived with two of the other co-founders, MJ and Jan.
You live together.
We live together. We honestly, my whole professional life has been with those two guys, and they're two of the co-founders of Delphi. There are a couple more, but those two especially, We worked at Bloomberg together, we worked at Deutsche Bank together, and we lived together for basically a decade.
Wow.
So, we're obviously best friends. And, when we started Delphi, we essentially, went to WeWork. So our apartment was staring down at the Fed in New York, and then our WeWork was on Wall Street. So it's actually pretty funny because, we were trying to build this parallel financial system, take down, the banks, and we were doing it, within their home court. Essentially, we'd wake up every day, walk to that WeWork, work all day till like 8, 9 p.m., cross the street, get Chipotle. That was like pretty much only food we ate all day. And then we'd walk back to our apartment and then work till like 2, 3 a.m. and then do the same thing every day for 3 years. And, I think I had that kind of mentality for sure where, when we were eating, we ate really fast so we could get back on our laptops and start working. And I think what's cool is, when we got a little bit more breathing room, when, Delphi was, cash flow positive, when we were able to hire way more people, delegate some of the responsibilities, that time to breathe, that time to think, that time to, live life, I think has paid volumes into like how we run Delphi and how far we can take it from here. So, going 0 to 1, I think is like really exciting, and you have to be locked in for that. I think 1 to 100, you got to be able to take, a step back to not get burned out and be able to see, not just big picture, but also like take a step away from the picture sometimes.
Dear When Shift Happens family, this is the educational bit of the day, and this message is probably the single most important thing you should take away from today's podcast. If you're serious about your crypto investing journey, please take some time to learn how to self-custody your assets to make sure that nobody can take your coins away, ever. If you don't learn how to be your own bank, it is very likely that one day you will lose your hard-earned crypto. The safest way to hold your crypto is in a cold storage that we also call hardware wallet. Hardware wallets are not complicated and they give you peace of mind. I personally use a hardware wallet called Trezor. It is open source, very easy to use, and the first hardware wallet created ever. As we like to say it in crypto, not your keys, not your coin. You can order your Trezor wallet in the description down below. And now back to today's episode.
That's so interesting. I'm really good at 0 to 1.
Yeah.
I'm terrible at 1 to 10 or
Yeah.
1 to 100.
Yeah.
I don't like it.
Yeah.
Like I love the chaos and the uncertainty, but scaling, terrible.
Yeah. You know what? Honestly, I thought that for a long time too. And to be honest, I am still trying to figure out how to go to 1 to 100, right? Fortunately, we have a really good team, and I think the team is like a really, big part of it. My CEO at Delphi, her name is Rashmi. She was like employee number 5 on Amazon Prime's team, like scaled that up to like a couple hundred people. She is exact opposite of me, but we think very alike. And she's been able to help, me learn so much about scaling businesses, and scaling teams and scaling the culture, I think most importantly. That being said, like, I totally agree. I love going 0 to 1. And that's why I love supporting, all my best friends and anyone working in crypto on, taking something from 0 to 1, an idea to some type of product or something live, right? That you can touch, feel, or, play with. But honestly, there's nothing else I would try, attempt to do 1 to 100 with other than Delphi, right?
Who are you?
Damn, yeah, that's a deep question. Essentially, like, I grew up in, New York and Jersey, and I think this was like a great place to grow up. I'm Indian, by the way, so my family's from Mumbai, India, and obviously being an immigrant, and being born and raised in America, kind of taught me a lot. And luckily had like 2 parents that loved me and my sister very much. And my sister's a doctor now. I always was kind of like led down either the business, engineering path, etc. And very early on, mostly through, conversations and, just playing and hanging out with my dad, fell in love with business. Really what excited me about it was how it interacted and like affected the social fabric of everyday life, right? And how so much of what, we did every day was just revolved around this. So ever since I was a little kid, I just always was thinking about, what were needs that people had, and then how could I provide value in the world to, make those. So, even if, burning songs on a CD and giving it to my cousins, for example, or, making stickers of like, car symbols and stuff and giving it to my friends that wanted, or anything like that. And just playing with the world. I think the world is such an interesting place, and like we're living at such an interesting time. And I know a lot of people are very pessimistic, But I think it's like, I'm so grateful to be alive, in this current day and age. And I think, a lot of people always say, man, I wish I was born in the wrong era or something like that. I could not have been born in the better era.
Absolutely agree.
I was born in the exact same, perfect time, place, everything.
So interesting. Like a couple of years ago, I mean, crypto was already there, but I was not aware of it maybe, 8-9 years ago. I was not that aware of it. And I was thinking, man, I wish I was born in the...
Absolutely.
I wish I was born earlier so I could be more of an adult when internet age happened.
Yeah.
So I could have taken full advantage of the opportunity, right? And then just a few years later, I realized, fuck, it's happening again, but at a much larger scale and a much bigger opportunity. So no excuse, motherfuckers.
It's actually funny you say that because, one of the co-founders of Delphi, MJ, him and I have been, we went to college together and everything like that. We said the same exact thing. We said, man, if we were born and were adults in the 2000s, we would have taken, advantage of the internet for sure. We would have built something. Then same thing with 08, 09, right? Mobile apps. We even in college, we started a mobile app company. It was called Wandermark, and we basically, had so many crazy ideas for apps. One was basically like this thing called Superlatives, which was essentially, a version of Instagram, especially before it became popular, where essentially instead of putting up pictures randomly, it would be like, what's the funniest moment of your friend or something like that, and it would gamify it like that. Or another one that was probably a really terrible idea, or maybe exists today, was basically like, and this is before Uber was a thing, but basically Uber for haircuts or something like that. And so there were a lot of terrible ideas, but it was so fun ideating on it, working with designers on creating the UI. We have so many of these UI, UXs, even work with some devs on like coding up like early editions of this app. And then the funny thing was, when we saw crypto, and we had always said, hey, when we see the next thing, we're not going to miss that. And then, on my 25th birthday in 2017, we were on a phone call, FaceTime with one of our friends. And he was basically, we were just saying, hey, you want to go drink somewhere or something like that, right? It's the weekend. And he was like, yeah, like also like, my roommate, his roommate at the time, he was like, he's not going to come out. He's like, stuck buying some like fake internet money. And we were all making fun of him, honestly. We were like, come on out. And then finally, he put him on the FaceTime. He's like, nah, man, like I've been learning about this thing. It's called Ethereum and stuff. And I'm like, man, you're such a loser. Like, just come drink with us, right? And so I went to dinner with my parents that night. And, when we came back up, my parents, obviously, Jan and MJ well, even though that was like still a few years in. They brought a cake up. They're like, hey, we want to cut a cake for Anil and everything like that. And we walk in and MJ's just like, giddy, like jumping up and down. And even, they've known MJ well enough to be like, MJ, why are you acting so weird, right? And he's like, oh, like, I just want to tell Anil something. And so we cut the cake. MJ doesn't eat any. He's just like, hey, like, bye, see you later. My parents leave. And he's like, Anil, come in my room. And that night, we spent like 4 or 5 hours just going down, ETH Trader and like our cryptocurrency, the Reddit, and like learning about, reading the Ethereum white paper and everything like that. And our minds were just blown. And I think that was the, first night that I ever went to sleep thinking about crypto. And it's the last night I remember not, going to sleep without thinking about crypto. Yeah.
I recorded a conversation with Kiao Wang from Alliance DAO a couple of weeks ago.
Yeah.
And he said they invest in autistic founders who have a childhood trauma.
Yeah.
Right. When I asked him what's a top class crypto founder, I mean, potentially, right? He said autistic because it helps you think independently, and childhood trauma because it gives you a chip on the shoulder and makes you want to prove something. Can you personally relate as a crypto founder doing extremely well?
Yeah, it's a good question. So, trauma is a broad spectrum, right? I've been very fortunate in my life. I have like parents, family, friends, support group all around me that like, show nothing but love, show nothing but support. Even when I quit my job, the person I was most like afraid to tell was my dad. Now he's actually CFO of Delphi, so he actually works with us. But he was an accountant at the time, and he had worked hard to build up this, son who was, following the path of like, going down, investment banking, and then like, venture capital and everything like that, just like I had sought after. And he was nothing but supportive. He literally told me like to my face, he's like, hey, I don't understand this stuff, but like, I'm not gonna, stop you from regretting this decision. And I know you'll, make it through no matter what. As far as like trauma goes, there's only a few moments that really do stick out in my head. And honestly, a lot of them have come from the stress of, building up Delphi. When we first got started at Delphi, it was the most free I've ever felt. Working with my best friends, working for ourselves. At the end of the day, every decision we made, it was just, impacting us. Over the years, now we almost have 100 people across the 3 divisions. And now I feel like at the end of the day, I don't have any boss or anything, but at the end of the day, the people who I work for are my employees and everyone on the team, right? And I think like the weight of every decision that we make as, leaders and founders of the company, weighs heavy on me. Even if I'm very convicted in like, hey, this is the right thing, still thinking through all that. So there's a lot of like, mini trauma and kind of just like running a business like that. As far as like childhood goes, fortunately have like 3 of my 4 grandparents still alive to this day, and really close with them, especially my mom's mom, who's basically raised me as a kid. My dad's mom though, passed away a little over a decade ago, and at that point, when she passed away, I don't think I understood death really well. I didn't understand what was going on or anything like that. But one of our last conversations, which at this point I didn't realize was one of our last conversations, she was being more philosophical and, more so in Hindi and stuff, telling me, there's nothing worse than like wasted potential, basically. Right. And she'd always been, our whole family was very like rosy and kind of like, hey, we want great things for our kids and everything. We work so hard to get them here and everything. And it wasn't more so like, hey, we want great things for you. It wasn't we expect great things from you. It's like, we know you will do great things. And I think that, was built into myself, my sister, my cousins at a very early age. But that quote has always kind of stuck out to me. And I think it's something that I like, very live true to this day where, you only have one life. This is a crazy world. I want to do as much as possible. I want to have as much fun as possible. I want to be able to, support as many people as possible, make like the biggest impact possible. Right. So that's been, that's something that always was probably one of my earliest memories.
I have 2 things that come to my mind. The first one is support of parents. It's so important. At the same, actually, the first business I built, I was 23 years old, and they just said, okay, we'll support you for a year. We'll give you not a lot of money, but enough money to survive. I moved to London, started my company, and it actually changed everything, right? Just the support. So yeah, it's so important. I'll do the same with my kids.
Yeah, absolutely.
Absolutely. I think they don't realize. And I was thinking, actually, I always wanted to start a company, but my dad wanted me to do a master. So I did a 1-year master on purpose to not have to do 2 years, right?
Yeah.
And then the second year of master was actually me just moving to London and starting a company and then supporting. And it ended up costing them probably half or much less to just support me in London, give me some money to
and you
pay for
$600
a room and food and to start a company. And now 10 years later, running a few businesses. Yeah, absolutely. The other thing you said that's really interesting is there's nothing worse than wasted potential, right? And I think it's Andrew Tate who said that. I mean, there's many things that people might not agree with what he says, but this one makes a lot of sense. It's not whether you're successful or not that's going to make you happy. It's whether you feel that you've done your best or you tried your best, right? It's the same as if you feel like you're wasting your potential, you're not at full potential, you're probably not going to be that fulfilled or feel fulfilled. But if you try your hardest, right, every day, you feel at the end of the day, I tried my best, even if it doesn't work out, you're still going to feel good, right?
Absolutely, yeah.
And that's one of the things that's so important for probably people to understand, people who are kind of thinking, I want to start something, but I don't know what, I'm scared of kind of failing, whatever. It doesn't matter. You're going to feel so much better just for trying and knowing I tried my best.
Absolutely. Yeah. I think, I couldn't agree more. I think like for me, anything I set my mind to, I don't give 100%. I do 200%, right? And honestly, like I try and set the biggest and highest North Star possible. One of my favorite, artists is Kanye West, right? And his music like influenced me very early on too, because he would say the most outrageous stuff, not just like the funny stuff that he says, but one of my favorite lines is like reach for the stars, and if you fail, you fall and land on the cloud, right? And that's kind of like really how I think about life in general. It's like I'll reach for the most craziest thing possible, and then worst case, I'll still end up reaching some level of success that other people would say is successful or something like that, right? But my own metric, I want to do the best in everything that I set my mind to.
last cycle you played the podcast and Twitter game a lot, but you told me that you don't do it anymore.
Yeah.
Why?
Yeah, it's a great question. I actually haven't talked about it much. Essentially, like, last cycle, started tweeting a lot, started going on podcasts, saw my, Twitter follower account, quickly grow, and basically saw myself, not personally become like this personality, but I saw like the road I was on, and, there was kind of like a specific type of Anil that, my followers or the people who I was, doing these pods and talking to wanted. I really hated that, honestly. Especially because I think I think everyone is like a broad person. No person is just, this crypto investor or, this crypto builder or anything like that. They have a whole other, and that's why I kind of was excited to do this pod with you, because, you basically wanted to talk about everything but crypto. And I kind of love that. Essentially, like, yeah, so I kind of got very like, disappointed, with not anyone other than myself really, but more so like the algorithm and kind of like what it forced me and others to do. And, I continue to see, and to be honest, the thing is, like, as a CEO and founder of a company, I kind of have to play that game to a certain extent. And there's a lot of value in it. And, again, like, this is something that, for my team and stuff, I feel like I owe it to them, to kind of like, tweet certain things, go to certain appearances, etc., even though I may not want to do that personally, right? And I think I've gotten way better at kind of like doing it in my own style over the years, and still I have to play that game to a certain degree. But I see a lot of people out there, being stuck in that loop, being stuck in that game, having to tweet, X amount of times every week, having to, do these threads, having to talk about every little, news line and headline that comes out. And, sometimes I think opinions are better, left to yourself. Like, we don't need X person's founder's opinion on this politic or, this rule or something like that. So, yeah, to be honest, I try and speak when I only have something to say. And I try and speak when I want to get a message out in the world. So, this kind of came about by, one of the threads I did earlier this year.
Talk about that.
Yeah. Like, and I'm sure we'll talk about that. But essentially it was like, some writing that I did while I was on my honeymoon with my wife. And I wasn't even going to tweet it out, but I sent it to a few close friends and people within Delphi. And they were like, you need to put this into the world. And, again, I felt like I was playing the game to a certain extent, but I am glad I put it out, because I got a lot of like meaningful messages from that, for people who said, it either helped them thinking about some pains that they were currently going through or had experienced in the past, or just had something that they were going to bookmark to go back in the future, right? So yeah, I mean, I guess to a certain extent, sometimes playing the game, you don't know when you are helping out people. So maybe it is something I got to play more. But yeah, I kind of took a backseat for a while, and I've done a few podcasts in the past few. I actually went on Good Game, with Chow and the Lifestyle guys. Recently went on Empire with Gano, who's a good friend too. And they're great conversations, but they're also with people who I consider friends. And this podcast was super exciting for me because exactly that, like, you wanted to talk more so about the human aspect, and I think that's something that people in crypto are so financially like motivated and everything like that. Like, we really forget that, like, we're building side by side by people who have histories, traumas, and things that they're still working through and trying to be ideally the best person, best version of themselves possible. So yeah, I was excited to kind of talk about that.
So let's talk about it.
Yeah.
The thread.
Yeah.
I have a big chunk on that, actually.
Nice.
You got married recently and took some time to reflect on 10 frameworks that have guided you so far in your life as a founder and as a man, and that hopefully can help our listeners become better at their craft and at the game of life. Let's take them one by one. The first one is so good. And in crypto, it's so not present. I would say the more I kind of like network or became friends with high quality people, the more I started to sense it. But the majority of the people are not high quality people, right? So be happy for others. Celebrate the successes of those around you. Their victories do not diminish your own. Instead, they contribute to a collective sense of achievement. More importantly, try to help people succeed. Success is not a finite resource.
Yep. Yeah, I like to my core believe that. At Delphi, I believe my only core superpower is just believing in people, and it's like it's free, right? Like that's the best part. You were saying something earlier where it was like your parents' support and parents' belief in you is so important. I 100% believe that. It's probably the two most important people who can believe in you. But I believe like anyone believing in you is important. I think a lot of the conversations I have with people, you know, no matter who it is, you know, for example, Gabby Dizon at Yield Guild, when I had a conversation with him, he said he wasn't even able to get on a phone with like anyone that he, you know, looked up to or thought had made it in the space, let alone have someone that, you know, believed in him, right? For us at Delphi, you know, on the other end of the stick, it was Ari Paul. You know, Ari Paul was a big influence for us, you know, in the early days of Delphi. He was like, him and Kyle Samani were basically the only two people who were writing about, you know, fundamentals. And we went to some meetup and, you know, we were talking, you know, he had a panel. Afterwards, he was talking to some people. And, you know, a lot of these people were at, you know, this is 2017. So a lot of people were asking really bad questions. And my partner, MJ and I actually were there. And, you know, we actually helped him answer some questions, right? And he was like, kind of like, you know, a little bit impressed and kind of like, oh, like, who are these guys? And so he asked us afterwards, like, hey, like, where do you guys work in this space? And we said, hey, we don't work there yet, but we're trying to build this research company. This is how we think about it, et cetera. And, you know, there was no pause, no nothing. All he said was, that's a really good idea. That's all he said, those few words. And I remember when we left, that was something that we were like, man, like that was the only faith and confidence, by the way, we got before launching Delphi. No one else had given us any sort of credibility or anything like that. And those few words changed our trajectory and been like, all right, we can do this. Like, this is something that we should do. So yeah, I think it's, you know, be happy for others is like something that is so simple, so basic, but I think people really forget. And, you know, in this day and age with social media and everything like that, I think, you know, it's obviously with ego and stuff, it happens to me, it happens to, you know, close friends, sure, it happens to you. You'll see maybe another podcaster get a guest and be like, oh man, like how come I didn't get this guy or this interview? You see this person put up a picture traveling or, you know, doing something somewhere and be like, oh man, I wish I could be doing that. And I think it's like really good to take a back seat and just be like, man, like that person's probably going through a lot too. That person probably worked really hard to get to where they are or did something, right? And yeah, I think it's like just very easy to just, you know, be like upset or anything like that. But when you're happy for others, you're winning too.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, 100% believe in karma first. But second, like something that was really shocking to me was 2 years ago, 2.5 years, when everything went to shit, Luna and then all the rest, right? How everybody was happy for you. I mean, they're probably happy for you as long as you don't do better than them, right? But then when everything turns into shit, no one is there anymore. Yeah. All your friends, gone, right?
Yeah.
And I got massively wrecked on Luna.
Yeah.
At like $7 million that turned into $5. We can actually talk about Luna because I know, you guys were big in Luna,
for
right?
Sure, yeah.
So I was probably the most hurt one in my group of friends, but like I was the one asking them how they're doing.
Yeah.
And I was like, and it disappeared, gone.
100%.
Right? And probably now, like barely any news, probably now jealous, right? And I don't understand. I'm like, why? Like
when I needed you, you weren't there. Yeah, absolutely. For us, it was, you know, out of the 3 divisions, Delphi Labs spent so much time. They built 2 projects on Astroport and Mars on Luna, right? And we had sunk a lot of money, time, and so much energy from, you know, some of the smartest people that I, you know, still am able to work with. And that's kind of the beauty of it. Even after that, we, you know, even after the whole Luna crash, basically no one really left, right? And I think that's like a testament to our culture and kind of like our mindset too. But, you know, what was interesting is, you know, after the Luna crash happened, which by the way, you know, we did a whole retro. We, you know, this is it's still on our site last week, learnings from last week. I advise anyone to go read it. I think it's just like one of our best reports, even though it's not really a report. It's just talking through our thesis, how that changed, and then what we, you know, what our involvement was, right? Mostly on the lab side. And I think, you know, I remember, you know, that was actually the week that I turned 30. So it was May 5th. It was my birthday, and then literally the day after the unpeg happened. And then every day that week, you know, Luna went down by, you know, 99%. So it was and not the best opening into, you know, 30. I remember that week being, you know, both really difficult and then really like motivating. Difficult because, you know, of course, you know, people were taking victory laps. You know, there are a lot of haters out there that were like excited and clapping that, you know, Luna fall. They were happy to see, you know, Delphi get hurt and everything like that. That definitely like, you know, really hurt me. I was kind of surprised. And what hurt me more though was exactly what you said. There were so many people who, you know, we had considered friends in the space. And a lot of them did speak out. And I remember, so many of those people, it's hard to forget people who stuck up for you when it was not easy to stick up for us, right? There were a lot of people who, we had helped or we had worked with, et cetera, who, didn't even send us a message privately.
Yeah.
Right. And I think that was like, maybe they were going through their own stuff, or maybe they didn't want to, they wanted their own brand. They were thinking about that. So that's totally fine.
But a message.
Huh?
A message takes
a message,
10
yeah,
seconds,
for sure. And
man.
meanwhile, we were talking to everyone.
Yeah.
We were, and what was motivating was us talking to the team. And it was, again, the hardest, probably, to date, like one of the hardest weeks of my life. But, as it was happening, I remember myself and the other founders, we all hopped on a call with the team, and we weren't in great shape, honestly. We had a lot of our own, personal net worth into Luna. Fortunately, the research and ventures business were okay, but obviously when any division of Delphi gets hurt, it impacts the whole thing, right? Because it's a bigger brand at the end of the day. And we were able to, myself and the other founders, we were able to just talk to the team and, answer questions. And, a lot of people were like, hey, is Delphi going to be okay? And that was never a question. We knew we were going to power forward. It was just like, hey, sometimes you get knocked out and we're going to get up, but right now we're lying down a little. We got to lie down a little bit. We got to take this punch. I just remember, talking to the team and, even having good friends, just reach out. We just wanted to check up, and then we went to dinners, went to a spa with one friend one day, and it was awesome just to not have to look at Twitter or anything like that. And those little breaks were, so great. And yeah, I mean, today, a lot of the people who, both, stuck up for us, as well as people who, didn't send messages, still are, supporting us now loudly, proudly, when it's, cool to do it again, right?
The punch, man. Took me 3 months to recover.
Hey,
recover mentally from the punch and not be in my bed dead in the morning. Took me 3 months.
Yeah, no, for sure. Hey, man, I mean, for us,
that's why I'm laughing. I'm remembering myself.
No, honestly, for us, it was a big learning. And honestly, I'm not glad we went through it by any means, but there are things I am grateful for. For example, it made us way more resilient. Us going through that, us seeing that, us navigating that.
And you're still there. What else is going to kill me, right?
Yeah, exactly. And by the way, I told you this before, every time we thought something had to go right for Delphi to be successful, that thing never ended up happening, and it ended up making us better for it, right?
Every time in Delphi's history, when we expected or needed something to happen, it didn't happen. Ended up turning out for the better. Do you have other examples than the Luna one?
Yeah, I mean, how much time you got?
Let's take one, the main one. Maybe some funding stuff you're talking about.
Yeah,
right?
yeah. So, I've told this story on a couple of the recent pods, Empire and stuff, but I'll give a TLDR, and if anyone wants to go check that out, it's more so about the Delphi story. We essentially tried to raise, 20 million, and we had an investor that was going to give us 5 of that 20 million. And this is 2019, so we're still trying to build the company up. Very poor, but very also time poor, right? And essentially, it took a lot of time. But essentially, we found our first investment, Thorchain, at 7 cents, and we tried to call down 10% of his capital, and he just went MIA. Today, we ended up using 0% APR cards and starting the fund ourselves. Today, we manage, 600 mil, all basically from that 1 mil, right? And what's beautiful about that is
all your own money.
Yep. So basically, it's all prop capital. We have around maybe 10% outside investors, but also what's cool about that is we're able to start new funds. And only let people within Delphi invest. So the only way you can invest in a Delphi fund is by working at one of these 3 divisions, being a top performer. So I think that's a huge blessing in disguise, where otherwise we'd be stuck playing the LP game. And, there are people who are way better at that than us. We'd be terrible at it, to be honest. We don't have, and the benefit of, not having any investors really, and, being able to do this ourselves is we get to do whatever we want, whenever we want it, and being very super deep. We don't have to spend any time being hey, yeah, this is what's going on with Ethereum and Solana to an LP who's nervous about, giving us a couple mil or something like that, right? At the end of the day, we're just focused on making the biggest impact in crypto. So yeah, and I think one thing I'll say more on the failure, embracing failure is whenever you read a book or you have a good podcast, discussion, no one's really you're not sitting around talking about, all the things that went easy, right? Like we like, oh yeah, like this happened, etc. No, you're always talking about the failures, and that's what makes a great story great, right? So I think like that's kind of the way that I've seen it. And even during that Luna crash week, I remember saying it to the team, and maybe I didn't fully believe it at that time, but I was like, hey guys, like listen, this is just gonna this is gonna be a blip. Delphi's gonna be around for for decades, and like this is gonna be a story that we look back on and be like, wow, like these guys survived and pushed past it, right? Yeah, it'll be just like an interesting chapter in the book.
Fall in love. Life is too short to pursue anything less than what you love. Fall in love with not just what you work on, but with who you work with. This is key. People often say, don't go into business with friends. I'm glad my best friends and I ignored this advice. Founding Delphi with them and going into this roller coaster journey has never truly felt like work. We don't have to outwork anyone. We outplay. This is only possible because we absolutely love what we do. So my question is, you guys are 5 co-founders, right? How did you build one of the most successful companies in the space without killing each other?
Yeah, the truth is we did. And by the way, like there are 5 like main co-founders of Delphi, but I consider it 7 actually, because Jose and Luke came and co-founded Delphi Labs, right? So people kind of laugh and say 7 co-founders is ridiculous. To be honest, that's been like a huge superpower, and there are trade-offs to everything, right? I think other people will say, hey, governing by committee and stuff is crazy. Fortunately for us, we do kind of like separate out the divisions. So you really have like 1 or 2 leads in each. For example, I spend most of my time on research and ventures. Jan and Tom focus on ventures. And then, Jose and Luke focus on labs, and Kevin works with me on research side.
Because maybe it's more like 2 kind of co-founders.
Yeah, exactly.
By the business or stuff.
Yeah, and the cool thing is, and that's why like having all these, divisions is, wasn't a grand master plan or anything. Obviously, there's a lot of synergies, and the flywheel is really powerful, and it's been, a big blessing having kind of this unique bird's eye view of the market. But honestly, like it kind of came from just us having, professional curiosity, and then having ADD, to be honest. We just wanted to, do as much as possible in every vertical as possible. So yeah, working with, and by the way, I said this earlier, MJ and Jan and I, we lived together for like 10 years and stuff. You can ask any of the other co-founders, like they've seen us, and even people on the team, they've seen us get into huge fights on a call. And by the way, like the fights, got to a point where people were scared about the future of Delphi. Like, our CEO, Rashmi, would always ping me afterwards, like, Anil, you guys can't do this on a call. Like, this is, like, you're doing this in front of the team and stuff. And I was like, hey, Rashmi, like, this is how we work. And also, like I want them to see that the passion, we care about it so much, because there was never any ego. That was my favorite part about working with, my best friends, is like, there was never any ego. We always were just fighting because we thought this was the best decision for the brand as a whole, right? So at the end of the day, we would get very passionate about it. But like, if anything, I would be more scared if we didn't fight, like it showed me that we all cared at the same extent.
What does a big fight look like, or did look like? Is it like swearing on each other in front of people? Or?
Never attacking one another. It's attacking one another's ideas. And there's a lot of swearing in that too. It's like, that's a fucking dumb idea because of X, Y, Z. It's never, hey, I know you're fucking dumb or anything like that, right? Yep. So yeah, it was always about the idea.
What was the dumbest idea that ended up working out amazingly well?
Man, there's so many. So well, I'll tell you one that didn't work out well. We pre-Luna collapse, pre-FTX collapse, everything like that. We wanted to build a big data product. And we thought it was a natural evolution of the research business. But we didn't want to build just like a skin on, Dune or anything like that. We wanted to build something that was like almost like a cross-chain Dune that had, easy UX, where no code UX. And, I was just chatting with the Dune CTO and Alex from Nansen actually just earlier this week. And I was just laughing and telling them like, hey, man, that was such a hard part of our journey where we had sunk so much money, right? Almost like $1 million, I'd say, just into building out this product. And how we were building it was all from the ground up. And we thought about this a lot too, about how to do it, but we wanted to do it right. And we wanted to invest the capital and time to do it right. And we hired the right people and everything like that. And even they told us like, guys, what you want to achieve is very, 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 very hard. but we're like, yeah, like we don't want to shoot for, again, like earlier, we don't want to shoot for a mid thing. We want to go for the best experience possible. Eventually we, you know, especially after the Luna collapse, we kind of like had to make a decision and cut that off, right? Cut that decision off. But we learned so much, not just about, you know, getting the data. Getting the data was actually the easy part, but like maintaining it and standardizing it to be able to like be interoperable with all the other data sets that we were getting was so hard and so costly. Again, it made me respect, you know, all the hard work that all these data providers do that, you know, people think data is commodity, et cetera, but all the hard work that goes into making that data as a commodity, super important. So even though I don't have any product, you know, I was talking to the Dune guys and the Nansen guys and Miss Sari and stuff, and like do such a great job. So the big shout out to them. Some ideas that, you know, worked out was, you know, we had this thing on our portal called Alpha Feed. We launched this probably 7-8 months ago at this point. It was one of my co-founder Kevin's ideas, and I had other ideas that I wanted. We just launched this other feature called Inline Comments, which basically turns our reports in our member portal as like a live breathing Google Doc. So like all our members can like highlight specific things, ask questions and everything. It's awesome. But Alpha Feed was something that Kevin wanted to do, which is basically like our internal Twitter, very, you know, where our research reports are very deep dives, right? Like you need to know about something, you read this report, you know everything about it, and you get the alpha. Our Alpha Feed are much shorter posts, and it was basically an internal Twitter. And I was like, Kev, this is a dumb idea, man. Like we can't like we're going to expect our analysts to work on research reports and work on this Alpha Feed, and then we're expecting people to read it. Like I was afraid that we were going to spend all the time, you know, building it out wasn't hard, but making our analysts do all that work and then, you know, having our members go to it to even read it, you know, because our site is more so, I'd say like a hotel. And over time, we are trying to make it more of a condo. What I mean by that is like how I think about products is like a hotel is a place where you go, you know, maybe once a week or something like that. You really don't know your neighbors. You just go, get what you need, and you leave. A condo product is basically, you know, you live there, you use the amenities, you know your neighbors and everything like that. So more of a community product. And I think that feature, Alpha Feed, became a huge success. It's probably the most visited section for our members right now. And now our analysts are writing 3-4 Alpha Feed notes, you know, a day. So it's been awesome to see. And that's more a recent one, yeah.
Let go of things quickly. Some things are too important to be taken too seriously. Remember, nothing is as dire as it seems. Learn to let go of trivial matters. Embrace impermanence. What's the hardest thing that you learn to let go more quickly over time?
Yeah, this like constant, you know, constant pursuit of perfection. And I think like, you know, we started out Delphi, everything had to be perfect. We spent just as much time on the design. And, you know, by the way, you know, like when we started, we had no team. Yeah. Exactly.
Good enough.
Yeah, pretty good actually. Yeah, now that I think about it, it's pretty good.
I knew I'd get you on that.
But, you know, when we started, you know, myself and the other co-founders, we watched YouTube videos to figure out how to code the site. We use YouTube videos to figure out how to use Photoshop, but like we weren't doing it to like just get the bare minimum. We wanted to make it perfect. So we were basically training ourselves to become like designers, web developers, everything like that, while trying to start this, you know, research firm. I think over time, you know, our you know, what's more important is getting your work out there, getting that feedback loop. And, you know, in crypto, people like, you know, people love reading these threads just as much as they like reading this deep dive, where our analysts spend, you know, so much time going into every little detail, making it perfect. And very often, honestly, there are a lot of reports that, you know, the main feedback we get is from the project saying, hey, this is like the best, you know, writing we've seen on the project, right? Like Calidor from Ostium just said that, you know, a few weeks ago to me. And yeah, I think like that's something that I feel very proud about is even though we're not in this constant, you know, we do aim for that perfection as much, but we're like, I don't get stressed out about it if we don't obtain it. You know, if we make a mistake or anything, it's just part of the process and we're going to continue to make mistakes.
Yeah. The devil is in the detail, but there's limits to that, right? Otherwise, you're not moving forward.
Absolutely.
Be bullish.
Be bullish.
Life isn't the zero-sum, as zero-sum as people make it out to be. Embrace optimism. What's the best way to become hyper bullish on life?
Honestly, spend time with people, touch grass, you know, do things like this, have conversations with people about their journey, their story. I think, we're at Token right now, right? A lot of these conversations I'm having, I think a lot of people are trying to schedule meetings and stuff, and they're trying to talk business and everything like that. And of course, I'm always down. More than that, though, I just want to know, who are you at a human level? What do you care about? Why are you here? Why are you working on what you're working on? Why do you believe in crypto, etc.? So it's cool. And I've gotten this feedback a lot this week is, we'll have 30, 40-minute meetings. I don't even talk about, what, the business part. And they're like, this is a weird conversation. They're like, I enjoyed this more than, most conversations I've had this week because, we just kind of like got to know each other. I was like, hey, we can do all the details later. We're face to face. Let's actually spend some time, get to know like what similarities we have, what differences we have, what I can learn from you, what you can learn from me. And I think that's beautiful. That makes me super bullish talking to people, and their passion like really energizes me, right?
Absolutely. That's what I'm trying to do with this podcast. More human conversations. If you want to have more details, there's enough podcasts out there.
Absolutely.
For the crypto bros that are more technical, that are great, but are just
of course
much more technical. And
they're trade-offs of both. Yeah, those are great too, obviously, right? But yeah, I really like this format.
Health, people, and time. This is a good one. Confucius said, a healthy man wants 1,000 things, a sick man only wants one. You said you should prioritize wellness, your relationship, and your time. These investments yield the most significant returns. I think a lot of us watched the podcast from Naval Ravikant a couple of years ago. His tweet thread, right? How to get rich without being lucky. In one of them, he says you have to make yourself miserable to get rich as quickly as possible to focus on what really matters. So I'm going to challenge you a bit. Isn't focusing in health or on health, people, and time a luxury that only rich people can afford?
100%. I could not agree more. And I really wish it wasn't that way. But it's the truth of the matter. And to be honest, I'm be a hypocrite if I gave the other advice. When we started up Delphi, I was not healthy. I was, I did care about my time a lot, but honestly, I was doing things that didn't scale and was doing things that, I didn't know what the ROI on that time was going to be. And I definitely wasn't, as committed to the relationships as I am today, as, I was back then. I still was, seeing my family every now and then, barely, was seeing my friends, and my wife and, at that point, girlfriend, would only really spend nights and stuff with her. She's the best. She, was working banking, and basically we were too poor to really get dinners and stuff. So when some nights we'd obviously get Chipotle by ourselves, but some nights when she'd work late and would come over, she would buy sushi with her banking credit, and then she wouldn't even eat it. She'd bring it for me, MJ, and Jan, and we'd all eat it, and that'd be like us like getting treated out by her. And so that's obviously a very important relationship to me. But yeah, I totally agree. I think like for me, I wasn't able to focus on my health till I somewhat made it or had like a nest egg where I could have that luxury to be able to spend time on it. And now that I do, it's it definitely is such a luxury, but I realize how important it is. And if I was to go back, maybe I would have tried. And by the way, when we started Delphi, I the one thing that I did pay for, because there was an Equinox right next to our WeWork, was a Equinox membership, which was very costly. Right, that was my biggest expense by far. But I still wanted to go to the gym and stuff.
Gym
in New York, and by the way, it has like sauna, steam, a big spa guy.
I tried to go there when I was in New York a couple of weeks ago, but they wouldn't let me in for a day.
Oh yeah,
they were saying it's $75, and I was like, I'll try one day.
Yeah.
Usually, I would pay max $50 for like a session.
Yeah.
I really value health, and I like to find like a nice gym, right? But they were like, no. If you don't know someone who recommended now I know someone.
Next time you remember, I'll always tell them like, oh, my friends like might be moving here. And I've one of my friends is like one of like the managers of the Wall Street Equinox. And he's like, yo, like you've referred so many people who have come who have been moving here. None of them have signed up. And I was like, yeah, like
I'm
sorry.
the next one who is moving.
Yeah, for sure. So yeah, no, I think I still did pay attention to it, but it was an hour a day max, right? But even that was such a nice break. Now I'm very focused on it. Even at my place at home, I have a sauna, cold plunge, steam room, everything set up. And it's like, do that every day.
I want to ask, how often do you do it? So you have them, but you use them actually, right?
Use them every day. I mean, my steam room is still like kind of getting built right now. There's a missing glass door, so I technically can't use it. But cold plunge and sauna, every day.
Cold plunge is good.
Yeah, it's a great way to wake up. Before, like, my team will be able to know if I did it before a call or not. You know, like they'll be know like I'm like hyped energy. Otherwise, like I'll be like, oh man, like, you know, a little bit like down, like waiting, still like checking through messages and stuff. So yeah, I start my morning basically off with you know, a cold plunge. My wife brings me like fruit, like she makes amazing juices and stuff. We'll like do some stretching and like look at the sun, just like Huberman, you know, prescribes. And doing that for like 30, 40 minutes in the morning is like my favorite way to start the day. And like really gets my day off right.
There was the Don't Die Summit yesterday from Brian Johnson, actually.
Yeah.
I have a bunch of friends who were like in this cold plunge. But I'm talking about that because obviously Brian Johnson is this, you know, billionaire who is now focusing on longevity. And I feel like in crypto, there is a lot of this crowd. I mean, people who were really successful who are now focusing on longevity, but it's kind of a trend, right? I would argue a lot of them, they say, yeah, I'm doing longevity, but they don't even go to gym, right?
Yeah.
But what I'm saying is they would never have thought about that before making a lot of money, right?
Yeah.
They would not.
Yeah.
You just focus on something else, right?
Which by the way, like, it's not even just about that. And obviously you have to think about the basics, right? Water, sleep. I'm huge into sleep. I try and get 8 hours every day, which this week has not been good to me. And you know, exercise, and exercise is so big. And then also just eating healthy food. And it's so hard to do that if you don't have some type of money, right?
Absolutely.
It's so expensive, especially in America. It's insane.
Crazy.
It's
insane. I live in Singapore. It's very expensive. If you want to eat clean, it's very expensive.
Yeah,
because
of course.
They're not that much into clean food here because it's more like the culture to eat like
of course.
different type of food.
Yeah.
So it's expensive here. I went to New York, SF, like a couple of weeks ago. Holy shit, man.
Yeah.
I was eating this sweet green every day.
Yeah.
Takeaway, like on Uber Eats. I would pay $55 for a fucking salad.
Yeah, I know.
For one. So twice a day, 110, 120 bucks.
Insane.
2 salads a day, right?
Insane.
So I would do it because I want to eat clean, right? But I'm like, how do people?
I know. So that is why it's a luxury.
Crazy.
Right? Yeah, absolutely. And yeah, I think like, you know, you say it's a trend. I hope it's not. I think it's such a good habit. Like, we should be supportive of people trying to think about longevity. And obviously, you know, everything has trade-offs again, but like people will take it too far, right? But that'll always happen. But honestly, like, I'm glad that people are getting into it. You know, for me, when you know, I'm in New York and stuff, I have a membership to Bathhouse there in Brooklyn. Great place. And also shout out Othership at Robbie Bent just opened this up in Flatiron. I do meetings there. And by the way, amazing meeting spot, because like, you know, you have to be vulnerable. You're basically, you know, like just in your swim trunk, you're naked and stuff, and you have no phones. You're just like, you know, going to sauna, steam, whatever. Best way to do meetings.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Did the same here actually with the guy who created the Pepe NFTs.
No way. Wow.
Yeah.
That must have been fun.
He actually was like, hey, let's go to, it's actually close to here.
Nice.
Fairmont.
I might have to go afterwards. Yeah.
Let's go Fairmont and let's go do ice bath and so on. I was like, fuck yeah.
I love it. Yeah.
You're like, there's some room for more abs here.
Yeah.
Anyway, sorry. Still love you, Dan. Write as often and freely as possible. Why should everyone journal every day?
Yeah, honestly, it's something that my wife is actually really good at, and it annoys me. Like, before we go to bed and stuff, she'll be writing. I was like, just come to bed, Tej, please. But you know, it's something that, you know, this thread came out of. You know, and by the way, it's pinned on my profile if anyone wants to go read it. But essentially, like, you know, writing like allows you to really, you know, you have to think about what you're, you know, talking is so easy. You can say whatever the fuck, and you can also not remember what you even said or think about the words that come out of your mouth, right? Writing, you have to have some type of purpose or some type of like reason for putting and jotting those words down. And by the way, you can write whatever you want. Obviously, I'm biased here. You know, writing is so, you know, embedded in the DNA of Delphi, and it's how we learn, right? Like, when we first started, we started a research firm, obviously given our backgrounds from TradFi, but also we thought, you know, we could get paid to learn about this industry that we were super excited about. It'd feel like cheating. And, you know, we were able to build up this like intellectual capital and this knowledge just by doing these reports. You know, right now we do a lot of consulting for protocols and stuff too. That's our favorite way to learn. It's actually working with these teams and then writing about what we're thinking and going back and forth. Same thing with, you know, ventures and our due diligence. But even just like, you know, I think doing that just for work is like probably the worst thing that adults do. You know, when you're a kid, you know, have creative exercises and everything like that. I think that's so awesome. I think it's something that adults need to do now too. So for example, right after this, I'm going to Japan for a few weeks. I'm going with my wife, and I'm flying out my sister, actually. She's coming to meet us too. She's a doctor, so doesn't get much time off. And we're already really excited because what we're gonna, what I've already talked to them, and what we're gonna do is either in Osaka or Kyoto or something like that, we're gonna buy a bunch of postcards, and then we're gonna spend a few hours, at lunch or something, and just write postcards to family, friends,
so cool.
Everything like that.
Because no one does it anymore.
No one does it anymore.
So they're gonna be so happy.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And so, I'm excited for that. And when you're writing those things down, and then when they're reading it, it's such a special moment. And it's ingrained forever, right? So I advise everyone to do that.
You just gave me a good idea for what I'm gonna do probably in my next trip. Just write a bunch of cards to people.
It's the best.
And they're gonna be like, a month later, what the fuck? Just unsure where to find the stamps, but
yeah. Honestly, yeah, that's been the hard. But my wife's been figuring it. The hotels are very helpful. Okay. I'd say that all these things though, are embedded in each other, right? Be happy for others, be bullish, etc. All these things are embedded. They're all like one stream of thought, really, just broken out into how I can describe it in different ways. It's like the blind man feeling an elephant, right? At the end of the day, I think like the grand vision is just like it goes back to your first question, which is like my mission is just like, hey, have people believe in themselves, and then hopefully get them to be, work on whatever they're passionate about and be as happy as they can, right? Life is too short to be sad.
I'm just going to stand up. I'm going to go get my phone, and I'm going to write down in my calendar for next week, because I'm going to Bali.
Yeah.
Buy a bunch of postcards.
Yeah.
Because otherwise I'm going to forget it and I'm not going to do
it.
Yeah.
It's awesome. It's a lot of fun. It takes time though, man, by the way. Writing takes time. So, do it over a lunch.
I mean, I'm supposed to get some holidays for a couple of days, so I have an excuse
to
nice,
not,
just nerd all the time.
And put your phone away too, right? But what I would do too, and this is like a hack, start texting some of your friends and the people that you want to send it to, and get their addresses. Because otherwise it's going to be kind of like weird. What? We asked before we left, and they're like, what are you sending me and stuff? I'm like, don't worry about it, And now, hopefully they don't watch his pod and then, get the postcards after, like, oh, or worse, they watch the pod and don't get the postcard.
No excuse anymore. Everything that's in the cow ends up happening.
Yeah.
I'm really surprised about how many people don't know how to use a freaking calendar, man.
Oh man. My calendar runs my life, honestly, unfortunately. Fortunately and everything. Unfortunately, right?
Even dates, whatever, everything is in there. Go to gym, everything.
Yeah, no, for sure. It's I use it as a tool for sure. I'm looking forward to, and also curious if I'll ever have a time where I don't use the calendar at all. And it sounds freeing, but it also sounds kind of scary. But yeah, we'll see. Maybe we record a pod in 5-10 years and see what's up. Yeah.
Empty calendar. What am I doing with my life now?
Yeah.
Actually, there's a bunch of people who came on the pod who said, you would be surprised, but my calendar is empty. Because it gives me space to breathe and think, especially the investors.
Yeah.
Right. They say I need space to think. Right.
Yeah. So on Tuesdays and Wednesdays on my calendar, I just block out. Basically, I don't take any calls on Tuesdays, Wednesdays. And my CEO Rashmi, she sent this big calendar invite that just said, "Let Anil work, please." And so those days are my days to really think. Fridays I'll accept some calls, but usually I try and just have that blocked off too. But Mondays and Thursdays are a shit show for me. But even then, right, the day fills up fast. There's so much to do in the world, so little time. And, a lot of my job at Delphi now is, it's dealing with fire drills, right? At the beginning of the week, I really don't know what I'm going to work on. It's really just what breaks, in some part of the division or what's needed. Yeah, exactly.
What breaks.
Yeah.
What breaks and that requires the most attention right now.
Yeah, 100%. So, the next few weeks I'm off because I'm going to Japan, but honestly, our team is so good. Even when I went to my honeymoon, that was the first time I unplugged in a while. And, I told my team, I was like, hey, if anything goes wrong, you had the bat phone number, dial me or anything like that. And they all laughed. They're like, Neil, we're not hitting you up at all. I almost felt FOMO,
How much time did it take you to disconnect?
Disconnect, yeah.
How many days?
Didn't take me much, honestly.
Wow.
Because our wedding was in India. So it was a 4-day, festivity event. So it was very tiring and everything like that. And I think that was the process of me disconnecting, because my mind had other stimulation. I had so many events to go to. I had all my favorite people.
Okay.
Yeah. And then, you know, by the time I reached the honeymoon, it was like so nice to just like not do anything. Like my mind was just like, all right, now you need a rest. Usually, I'm sure you're the same way. Like I need stimulation, you know, like 24/7. We have these dopamine machines and everything like that. It's like rewired our brains.
The cool thing is, I mean, obviously crypto is worldwide 24/7, but if you guys are mostly in the US and you are spending time in Japan, the time difference is so big that you feel like you're in another world.
It's
and
a
you don't
feature, not
care.
a bug.
Just
Yeah.
like,
Exactly.
not giving a fuck.
Yeah. Well, Singapore's been super tough too. Fortunately, we have, you know, around 23 people from the Delphi team here. So still feels like we're, you know, working and obviously like in meetings and everything like that. But yeah, you know, 12 hours is a lot. Yeah.
Yeah.
It is a feature, not a bug though. You know, like that's also why Japan's cool. India was cool for that too. And, you know, we honeymooned in Sri Lanka and Maldives, which is where a lot of that thread came out. And yeah, honestly, like, you know, by the time I woke up, you know, of course I would check the phone every now and then and like you sneak away and just check Telegram and stuff, but nothing.
When she's taking a shower.
Yeah, exactly. Shower, or she was like, you know, getting a massage and stuff. I was like, oh, like I'm good on a massage right now. Hour to like just go on the computer and stuff.
I feel relaxed already, baby.
Yeah,
it's okay.
yeah.
We're all the same. Seek meaning over prestige. You wrote in an alternate version of my life, I would have continued down the prestige path.
Yeah.
I have nightmares of that, to be honest. What path were you on, and what made you seek meaning instead?
Yeah, man. I really do get nightmares of this.
What's the worst nightmare you're getting?
Well, the thing is that just being average, I think.
Oh.
And I think like, you know, the worst part about it is I've seen it in, you know, a lot of good friends, a lot of, you know, people who I used to work with and stuff. They're living out, you know, and I don't mean to say this in a bad way, but they're living out what would be my nightmare, right?
Maybe you're living out what would be their nightmare.
100%. This is chaotic. This is not for everyone for sure, right? And I think like, yeah, absolutely. I think like for me, when I was growing up, super excited about business, obviously fell in love with like Apple, you know, Steve Jobs and everything like that, but also like, you know, Bob Iger and Disney and everything. And, you know, we basically, my dad, you know, as an Indian immigrant, I basically had a couple of different paths, like realistically. The doctor, medical path that my sister went down, never was really interested in that. Or the engineering path, which I was actually thinking about computer science, but I really love business because I felt like I could do anything, whereas computer science felt so obviously technology related, which I do anyway, but business felt like I could do anything. I could sell like coconuts, you know, like whatever I cared about. So I went down the business path and obviously went down finance, majored in finance and entrepreneurship, and worked at Bloomberg doing research for a bit, then went to Deutsche Bank doing leverage finance. And that was the path, like, you know, when I was in college and I thought, hey, what would be a good path towards what I saw as success? That was it. I was checking off the boxes. But, you know, and I'm generally a very happy person. You know, my friends describe me as like not, you know, cup glass half full. They describe me as glass overflowing. But you know, that was the time where I started really questioning, like, you know, what was this rat race that I was on, and why was everyone telling me that I should be happy about what I was doing? Because I didn't feel very happy. You know, at Deutsche Bank, for example, like the job was interesting, leverage finance, but only 20% of the job was what I was learning and doing things and like working and understanding companies and everything like that. 80% was just, you know, politics with, you know, old people, and then like, also just learning systems that like wouldn't transfer anywhere else, right? So I think like that was really scary. And, you know, the path there would have been after that, either leave to go to private equity or venture capital. My MO was to get into venture capital eventually. But even I think traditional venture capital, you know, they play a whole different game. And I have friends who are, you know, working at traditional VCs right now. And, you know, a lot of them are very happy. But you know, I wouldn't be, I don't think. I like the craziness and chaos of crypto. I like how, you know, we think we have the balls to think that we can invent this whole new parallel financial system and, you know, have this technology kind of be embedded in every industry and facet of everyday life. And I like working on hard things, and I like people betting against me. So, you know, that is, I think, really key. And I think the other crazy part about like, you know, crypto is, you know, I've met obviously some of the dumbest people in the world in the industry, but I've also met some of the most smartest, like passionate and kind of like, you know, interesting, unique people. And I think that is like one of the biggest hacks and underappreciated of this industry. There's no banking conference that has this energy, another thing is like, even in Japan, I am unplugging, but I have a few, there's some people on crypto Twitter and stuff I've never met in real life, but I'm meeting up with to have like a dinner and stuff. My wife's not too happy about it, but I was like, hey, well, I'll go to dinner with this guy and everything like that. And you have friends all around the world who all think, have some similar type of thinking as you. And you can learn from that. So yeah, it is a nightmare because, I feel like crypto allows me to live like what I see as my dream. And I'm super grateful for that. And, no matter what the timeline says or anything like that, that's never going to be able to be taken away from me.
You said, I was not really happy. Are you happy now?
Yeah, honestly, I could not be happier, I think.
Why?
I'm just at peace, kind of. Like, I know there's still so much to do. I think Delphi's still getting started. I think I'm still just getting started, But what I'm really happy with is like what we've done so far, what I've done so far, the man that I've become today, and like how much time I spend trying to help people and do exactly what you asked earlier, which is like what I view as my mission. And my favorite part about it is like knowing this, I'm 32 right now. And I know a lot of people, in crypto especially will say that that's old. I still feel young.
We're boomers.
Yeah, right.
The boomers of crypto.
Yeah, exactly. And I have been in here for 6 years, so I feel very, very old. Right?
I have a 60-year-old grandpa today on the podcast, Karamuchi. So
oh, wow.
We have people who are almost twice at our
don't
age,
show
right?
this. Please don't show them this. Yeah.
How does it feel to be 60 in crypto? We kind of touched upon that before, but let's dive a bit deeper. Be more present and grateful of what you've achieved. This is a tough one, actually. How the hell do you do that?
No, I say it in the thread. This is the one that I struggle with the most. My wife helps me with it a lot. Like honestly, I'm so focused on what's next, and
always,
and that does drive me. I'm always excited about it, and I think it allows me to, do what I consider and other people consider as like accomplishments and successes. But yeah, I think like the honeymoon was such a great time for me. That was probably the most present I've ever felt, because it was like right after the wedding, and everyone always says your wedding is such a special time because all your favorite people are in a room together, and I was like, hey, this is just gonna be a big party. It's gonna be fun, whatever. What was so special was seeing all my favorite people talking with all my other favorite people who had never, it wasn't just like, the crypto crew over here, my, college crew over here, and my family over here, and her family over there. It was all of them talking to one another. And like all of them, like being able to, their one commonality was that they knew me and my wife, right? And, they saw our love, and, they knew that we had so much love for each and every one of them. And it built so many, like even today, even in like this week at this conference, I was hanging out with some friends, and they were like, oh, like your uncle said this. And I was like, oh man, oh yeah, my uncle from that. And those little relationships and those little sparks were so like, I was so grateful and like so blessed to be able to see that. And I think like, going on the honeymoon and just being able to be with my wife and us like really appreciating like what we had seen was like really special. And by the way, I think being able to be present every day is almost like, I don't know if that's good for me. I like always thinking on what's next. I like working. I like grinding it out. And then, rather than being present, what I think I'm better at than being present is being able to reflect back. And maybe that's kind of like, my cope for it or something like that. But I'm able to, work really hard and go on these stints. And then when I am either relaxing or when I'm talking to a friend about something that they, either were with me for or saw me do, able to reflect on that moment then is actually, where I get a lot of, fun and enjoyment out of.
For 10 seconds. Not too bad, actually.
Yeah. I was
What's
like,
next?
yeah,
What's
that's
next?
cool. Yeah. But by the way, this is what's happening next week. Yeah.
You gave us some solid personal growth and life alpha, but we are here to do crypto.
I love it.
What are 3, 4, 5 frameworks that you think are really helpful for people to become really good at crypto investing?
Yeah. I'd say, again, not financial advice or anything like that. And by the way, I don't think...
Not financial advice.
Oh, wow. I love it. Damn.
No excuse.
Amazing. I might need that shirt.
I have a bunch.
Amazing. And by the way, I don't think anyone has the perfect answer to this. Everyone's still figuring it out. And I think that's probably the most bullish thing, is that everyone's figuring it out from day one. Even Delphi, who's been here for 6 years, if we, my favorite part about this industry, if we, turn Delphi off or go to sleep for like 3-4 months, and there's other, younger kids or people who come into the space and spend every waking minute of every day learning and getting caught up to speed, within 6 to 9 months, they'll probably be ahead of us in a lot of different sectors, in a lot of different ways and perspectives, right? So just be very close, be very on the pulse, be very deep. And I think this goes back to what I was saying earlier, which is one of the biggest blessings that Delphi's ever had is we don't have any investors or anything like that. And again, there are trade-offs, right? It's all our own money. We, maybe don't have people who are financially motivated to root for us. But I think what really helps us is just we got to be as deep as we want, as much as we want, and never have to come back up to, the shallow waters to kind of like, explain, why NFTs or what DAOs are or anything like that, right? And of course, we do that with some like consulting clients for like Fortune 500 companies and stuff. But it's way easier to be able to, do that and go way deeper with those opportunities rather than having a comfort like an LP every, 6 months or something like that. So yeah, number one, be as deep as possible and be in the trenches, stay on the pulse of it. Like that is probably the biggest one, I'd say. Number two, I'd say like the space is, obviously growing. This conference is a massive production, right?
It's crazy.
But it's a much smaller space than you realize. So everyone you talk to, make sure you, leave a good impression and then, build a good reputation with them.
I have to say something about that. To more of the Steady Lads guys.
Yeah.
Right? And I was preparing we ended up talking about shit for like 1 hour, so I was not really preparing. They said, I think it was Taiki, I was saying, there is 30,000 people in this conference.
Yeah.
There's all these booths, right?
Yeah.
But they say, we are deep in the space and we don't know 95 or 97% of all these even project and booths.
Yeah.
Right? Who the fuck are these people?
Yeah.
And so when you're saying the space is much smaller than what we think, is actually to the people who are really deep in the trenches and the real crypto native people, there's not that many.
Yeah, for sure. It's like 1 to 5%, right? And I think like, even if you don't know someone specifically, you would definitely have, one mutual connection somehow. And
that's how I get everyone on this podcast.
Yeah,
Boom.
100%, right? And I got a lot of referrals for you afterwards.
Sure.
Not that you asked. But I think, that's definitely how we've been able to build, the Delphi reputation up, is everyone we work with, we really kind of give care, love, and like respect to, right? We handle with care. I think one thing that I spend a lot of time on, and I was just talking to a good friend, G Money, about this yesterday. I think he's the same way too. And essentially the way that what we were talking about was, with Delphi, because I have these 3 divisions, one thing that I get this feedback a lot, so I know there's something here, is, a lot of these people will say, oh, Anil, I appreciate you taking time to talk to me because I've reached out to, XYZ big fund or XYZ big protocol or XYZ firm and was left on red or was never replied to or was never able to schedule a meeting. And to be honest, maybe I'm a little bit more free with my time, but the reason why is because I think I have way more leverage on my time than most other people because I have these 3 divisions. So more often than not, maybe this project's not the best for investing, but maybe there's something else that we can learn from. Maybe there's something that on the research side, it's a mechanism that we find interesting, or maybe there's something that we can help on the consulting side, do design for, or build an ecosystem with on the lab side. And so for me, I've been able to, over the past few years, say yes to a lot of conversations I think most people say no to. And I think and I hate these terms, somebody, nobody. I was on a podcast with these 2 guys from Pivot. These guys I met in India who I wanted to support. I met them, last year when I went to see the venue and everything. And they were like, hey, Anil, thank you so much for giving nobody's time as a somebody. And I was like, man, I hate that you said that. Like everyone is a somebody and you should not think that way at all. I'm a nobody, all of us are nobodies and all of us are somebodies. And I think there's so many, but if you want to use those terms, I think there's so many people who are working so hard to become what they quote unquote think are somebody's. And I think giving them that time of day and then believing in them, which again goes back to my first point and is free, is like such a small like thing that you can do. There's so many people who I've talked to who have, ended up at, starting big protocols or, joined big funds and everything. And they'll say, Anil, you were like one of the first people who, took my call. And I was like, that's super surprising because you're super smart. You were hustling. You were in my DMs and everything like that. So, and maybe my DMs will get, well, my DMs are always a shit show, but I always make it a point to try and answer basically everyone. This is a whole other point. But I think people just want to be felt and seen as humans. And, back when I used Reddit every day, something that stuck out to me was there was the Ask Reddit thread. And it was basically like, hey, homeless people, what are some things that, people who haven't been homeless don't know? And it's like people who have been homeless, what are some things that, people who haven't been homeless don't know? And one of the comments like really stuck out to me. It was like, hey, I was homeless for like a couple of years. Now I'm all good and everything like that. One of the things that like was the most difficult part about being homeless was like when I would, ask someone for money or even like just say anything to someone, even if I wasn't asking for money, they just walk past me and not like look at me or like treat me as a human or anything like that. I think what people don't realize is they're doing that a lot, on digitally. And I think like that's one thing that I even, in New York.
Ghosting.
Yeah, you're ghosting, yeah. And of course, man, you got to be valuable over your time. I understand that for sure. So I can't, I'm not trying to, put down anyone or anything like that. But, whenever I see homeless people, whether it's in New York, obviously there are a lot over there and anything like that, they ask me anything. I always, even if I'm in passing, like, hey man, sorry, like don't have anything right now. Or, oh, hey man, like that, this is where it is.
Do you have a Bitcoin wallet?
Yeah.
Give me a QR code.
No, horrible. I don't do that. Well, maybe there's a way that we can, maybe there's something we can build for the homeless. On Twitter and stuff, like, same thing, right? Like I want to make sure that I'm answering because all these people are working super hard. And like, I remember when I was starting up Delphi, there's still messages from people who I'm actually really good friends with now, who you can go back to our histories and you'll see a big cold email or something like that they ignored or something like that, right? And we laugh about it. Like, Anil, like you were trying to like slide in my DMs and stuff. I was like, of course I was. Like I was trying to make something. I was trying to like put Delphi out there. I was working really hard, etc. And, I want to be supportive of people who are trying to make their dreams come true. And if me replying, and even if I'm saying, hey, sorry, this isn't interesting for Delphi, but like, keep it going, like I like the hustle. I love the grind. That's the least I can do, I think.
So be on the pulse, be deep, and the space is smaller than you think. Leave a good impression.
Yep.
Anything else?
Yeah. Let me think. I'd say like
maybe one more.
Yeah. I'd say like, this is kind of a hack and, but maybe I can like extrapolate it out to more people is like at Delphi, we have this thing called Hive Mind. So every division, Delphi Research Ventures Labs, it brings a totally different perspective, right? We have this analytical perspective via research. We have the builder's mindset via labs. And then obviously the investor's perspective via ventures. That Hive Mind is like what really powers Delphi to its core for every decision. So what does that mean for other people is find your tribe. Doesn't have to be a big group. Delphi is huge. But like, even a group chat of 5 or 10 people, and be motivated to help each other. I think so much of crypto is, again, PvP, right? Oh, I got to out-trade everyone. Oh man, you made that trade. You sold Sol here. Fuck, I'm still bag holding, whatever. I'm round tripping, whatever. Be happy. That's good for them. That was their own decision. Maybe you can learn from that. If you do, for me, I'm a permeable. I round trip a lot of stuff, but I want to hold a lot of these assets for years to come, right? And maybe people will dump on me. Maybe some of those will be my friends. That's okay, right? I think like, finding your tribe and being able to build that trust is so important. And I think that's like what really makes Delphi so magic. Is internally. There's no PvP. There's no, we have this chat called Pure Alpha, which basically everyone at Delphi is in, and it's just trade ideas and investment ideas and stuff like that, where you just share a thesis. And that chat is always so active. And then there's a chat even more active than that called Reads. And this chat is basically just us like talking about the space, sometimes sharing tweets, but very philosophical. And like so many good debates happen. Like I actually really try and stay away from crypto Twitter. I only read Delphi reports, Delphi chats, everything like that, because I get so much more knowledge from, all that hard work that these teams kind of put into it. So yeah, I'd say find your tribe is definitely like a big one. You can't do this alone.
What are your top 2 favorite crypto teams in the space and why?
Wow, that's really good. So this is a hard question for me because, you know, there are a lot of portcos that I'm probably not the lead for, right? But I'll bring up a few teams that I've worked with closely that I can like very easily, confidently say they're some of the best teams in this space. One of the teams is Axie. And, you know, I think people would say, oh yeah, that's from last cycle, et cetera. No. They're going to be here for a while. These guys are working day in and day out. I think they've, you know, unlocked something that games and culture and non-crypto projects will learn from, and there will be case studies on for years to come. So yeah, I mean, the effort and the work that these guys put in, and by the way, the resilience is like second to none. And, you know, in that year of Axie in 2021, we were on calls with them a bunch because, you know, there was so much going on. And, you know, like in a DeFi protocol, you can make certain upgrades and stuff, make certain sinkholes to like help with supply and everything like that. In a game, you can't do that, right? But they were very well aware. And at the same time, they were balancing so many different things. And I think they did a really good job, all things said, you know, done. And I'm really excited about, you know, how hard they've been working and what they've been working on next, which is, you know, really having their community use their IP to build projects. Because I think this is going to be a first of its kind. And, you know, we're investors in a lot of games, and I'm super excited for a lot of these games that are coming out in the, you know, in the coming months and years. But a lot of them will need to build a community up and do what Axie did 4 or 5 years ago at this point. So I think, you know, Axie will be a really, really cool one. Second one, you know, that we work with, you know, really closely is, you know, Synthetix and the Aave guys, Stanny and Kane. I know you're having Kane on soon.
Yeah.
Those guys gave us our first break, and of course they were still, you know, small and getting started then too. So it didn't feel like they were giving us a break. Felt like a good, you know, meetings of minds and everything like that. But man, we're working with those guys, and you know how exciting and how, you know, that was like, you know, having that infected in me. So early on, made me so like bullish on crypto for the rest of my life. Like being able to work with these guys I had never met in person, and being able to come up with mechanism design or, you know, safety modules, like going through risk and stuff, and then meeting 2-3 years later in person, being able to pick off right where we left off. I was just with Kane at Karate Combat, and man, it was like great to like, you know, give that guy a hug after I haven't seen him in so long. I think, you know, those teams are super underappreciated for how much work and effort they put into the space. And I think, you know, again, there are going to be learnings from that for years to come. Lastly, I'd say, you know, our labs team, Astroport and Mars, these guys, you know, again, their protocols, they built it on, you know, Luna, which obviously, you know, blew up, and then they ported it over to Cosmos, which funny enough did the opposite, did not blow up, right? And I think, you know, like those guys, the resilience that they've shown is inspirational. And like, you know, I think Mars and Astroport were 2 of the best like developed projects in the space. The attention to detail, like we open sourced everything from the design to the legal frameworks that Gabe Shapiro led for us. And you know, the storyline, everything was so like the attention to detail was second to none. Like, and you know, they're working on some really interesting things. Like, I'm always going to be bullish those guys. Obviously, very biased, right? But yeah, I think like being able to be in the front seat and seeing, you know, in the war room with them and seeing how they operate and how they didn't even flinch. You know, when Luna was going down, Astroport was the only real exchange that you could offload. So it helped save a lot of people. And, you know, those guys were losing their whole net worths, and they were working to make sure other people could get their net worths out.
Crazy, man.
I think that is something that like, man, I fucking, yeah.
What's something you believe in that most people would not agree with?
In crypto or just generally? General, damn. I'd say I do this to crypto because it feels like right now, and I'm you know, the energy in the conference is really high for sure. But I think, you know, a lot of conversations I'm having, people are so, you know, questioning, you know, whether this industry is going to build what they think is important and everything like that, and when is it going to happen? And I really hate that. People always ask, like, when is crypto going to deliver something? But like, we've already delivered something pretty powerful. This parallel financial system, most of my net worth is still in it. Most of my net worth is on chain, right? It's not in a bank account or anything like that.
Yeah.
That if you had told me that even 10 years ago,
Yeah.
I don't even understand what that would have meant. And I think like that needs a pause. That needs a round of applause. And obviously, again, we're not good at celebrating. We should always be moving on next. And of course, there's so much left to do. But I think when people think, crypto's early and it's not happening fast enough, like, with this TikTok and everything, our attention spans are so short that everyone wants something right now. Everyone wants to get rich quick. Everyone wants this. One thing, Delphi, we've done so many different things. And one thing I've realized, building is obviously very hard. Running a research company is really hard. Doing consulting is really hard. Running a design agency, we just started that earlier this year, really hard. Obviously, being investors is really hard. Everything is hard. Everything takes time. Nothing is easy. And that's the fun. That's like something that should be fun. So I think what people should be thinking about is like, have fun while we're working on this stuff, because in 2-3 decades, when we look back and say, wow, we were right. This did change the world for the better. This is the time. And if you're just sulking and, questioning the space and stuff, it's not going to age well. And you're not going to enjoy like your life, being that pessimistic. And when people say crypto is early, of course it is, but the internet is also early. The internet's like 20, 30 years old, right? Like it was just able to drink, a few years ago. So yeah, I think I'd say, just take a step back, realize what we've already accomplished, be proud of that. Realize what we're working on is probably the most important thing you can work on. I remember when I did get crypto pilled, for me, it wasn't a question. Like I had to work here. There's no, I saw the charts and everything, right? Like money was just going to be inflated. There's nothing else that I could work on that could have an impact like this. And I still work on that today.
Take a step back and be bullish. What's your biggest prediction for the next 12 months?
Wow, fuck. I hate this question. You know what? I'm a perma bull, so my predictions are always crazy. And I've been wrong many times. I'll say that at the start. I'm blindly bullish. I think right now is, obviously there's a lot with macro, everything like that. I think if you do get this regime change and you get, regulatory, not just clarity, but like regulatory support for crypto, it's going to be the most insane thing we've ever seen. So when I first got into crypto, like probably around the same time as you, like I think like ETFs, Bitcoin ETF was like crazy idea, right? But like something that we would still joke about, like, oh, that'd be cool if we got an ETF and stuff. We got that. We have an ETH ETF too. Like the government supporting us in our mission to kind of dethrone them was never anything we even joked about. I always thought crypto was gonna persevere without the government, right? And the opportunity, and which, by the way, it's not definite. There's a very good chance that, Kamala or the Democrats win, and maybe they are just as anti-crypto as they have been in the past. But if we do get a change and all of a sudden the regulators and government are not in our way and actually supportive, I think that is the craziest, most bullish thing I've ever heard in my life in crypto. And I think what's amazing for that is we already have really smart builders in the space. There are a lot of smart people who are building in tech, who are obviously working in fields like AI or biotech or something like that are crypto curious, that, are risk averse and don't want to join this industry that the government is constantly attacking. And if that changes, not only does it, allow those, builders to kind of join us, it also allows them different ways to build projects. So, one thing I talked to Jason Yanowitz at Blockworks a lot about is the IPO market in crypto is terrible, right? It's really been Coinbase. Maybe they'll be Kraken. Maybe it's Fireblocks. Who knows? You can name it on, one hand. IPOs are actually really important for business building. It's actually, before tokens, and I know crypto people aren't aware of this, IPOs were really the way to, liquidity for not just, the investors, but the teams, the employees, the founders. And there are a lot of people who probably want to build strong projects, strong products on top of these crypto protocols that don't want to have a token, don't want to go through all that stress. Having a token is super stressful. So like, I think like, that change would be, really kind of change the whole, kind of like a big inflection point for crypto, the industry at large, and, by a matter of fact, the world.
Thank you, man. Thank you so much for what you guys are doing at Delphi. Working so hard to push the space forward And thank you for taking some time today out of your crazy schedule to make this happen.
No, man, I appreciate it. Yeah, thank you so much for what you do, man. I think these podcasts are super important. Just generally, I think, podcasts are obviously a great way for people to like learn about the space, etc. What you do is so special because, this is probably my favorite podcast I've ever done because like,
Bam! Another one. They all say
that's a clip. I love it. And I think like, being able to talk about the human aspect will let a lot of, hopefully whoever listens to this help realize that, what they're working on is always going to be challenging, but like nothing's easy and nothing's worth doing is easy, right? So yeah, man, I really appreciate the time.
Amazing.